Sandhan. All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
Hello friends, today I got an opportunity to take one of the poems by Wilfred Owen, and as far as this poem is concerned, it is close to me for the simple reason that presently we are living in a very conflict times, and we find that there is a glorification of war, and this glorification of war has been criticized by the poet. The poet himself has observed this nuisance, and this is the reason that that why he has motivated to write this poem. In present time, we see that that in World War I and World War II, and even in the present time, we see that there is a lot of conflict between the states, between the nations, and the international relations have been soured. And many times, the states or the countries are appreciating the army personals, and they are called the martyred. They are martyred, and in a real sense, that that the poet says that that why is this killing for? $1 million question about it as such. And since time immemorial, since last 10,000 years, we have seen killing, wars, battles, conflicts, and all sort of stuff as such. And in last century, in World War and World War I and World War II, there was annihilation. Annihilation એટલે મોટી તાદાદમાં લોકો માર્યા ગયા હતા. More than 5-6 billion people have been killed in World War II, and 2-3 million people have been killed in World War I. And very important thing is that that the politicians or the national leaders are fighting for their vested interest. They themselves do not have to go to war. It is they are sending the soldiers, and every person is important. That is very important thing. Here the poet want to say that thing, that every person is important. So today we are going to take this poem, Anthem for Doomed Youth, by Wilfred Owen. And as far as when talking about the poem, first of all, let's capitalize on the title, Anthem for Doomed Youth. Now anthem, what is anthem? પ્રાર્થના, પ્રેયરને આપણે એન્થમ કહીએ છીએ. અને ફોર ડૂમ્ડ youth means જે લોકો માર્યા ગયા છે, જે લોકો યુદ્ધમાં માર્યા ગયા છે. અને આવી તાદાદ છે, as far as this people, there are numbers of people, since time immemorial we have seen that they have killed, and the nation, they are giving the tribute. In a real sense, Wilfred Owen wants to tell that this type of tribute is required. Out and out, Wilfred Owen is Christian. He is having the Christian feeling, and he tells that that why I should take a life of another person. Now in many of the war movies, we have seen the message has been given that why to kill another person without any reason. Because when you have conflict, when you have the differences, then those differences have to be solved by mutual talking, by table talking. But when you talk about war, when you talk about battle, when you talk about bloodshed, then we find anarchy. ત્યાં જ આપણે બરબાદી જોતા હોઈએ છીએ. અને આ બરબાદી જે છે, as far as this tragedy is concerned, what Wilfred Owen is talking about. And this poem is not only sonnet, but this poem is autobiography. This poem is in a way of a auto poem or autobiography of the poet as such. Because I can talk about the war, but I might not have been myself involved in that wars as such. I may just be reading something in the newspaper, reading about the novels, and talking about the things by watching on the television. But when I'm having my own personal experience, And when I am writing certain things, then there is a gravity, then there is an intensity in this. And here, the poet is having the first hand experience of the war. And here, what we call it as anthem for doomed youth. Je loko youth, je yuvaniyao, who were the pillar of the society, જે સમાજના સ્તંભ હતા, જે લોકો વગર કારણે માર્યા ગયા છે, ડૂમ્ડ એટલે બરબાદ, એના માટેની આ મારી પોયમ છે, આ પ્રેયર છે. As far as this poem is concerned, it is related for this doomed youth. And what the poet want to convey, કે જે અત્યાર સુધી થયું એ બરાબર છે, but in future also this type of thing should not transpire. In one of the movies in Border, we have seen this thing only. What we have seen? That the clear-cut message is that why we cannot solve our problems by talking on the table, by negotiating, by having the communication. The communication is the buzzword. That is a very important part. And here we find that, that he is talking about the people who have died in the war. Now, as far as this poem is concerned, this poem is about World War I. And in World War I, there was many countries, they were having specifically the wars, interwars. And these interwars had taken the shape of World War I. And in World War I, the poet himself had this experience and he has written about it. Now, first line, what passing bells for these who die as cattle. Now, as far as the first line is concerned, it is very critical. And critical in a way that, that died like a cattle. Not one or two, but in hordes, the people have died. And who are these people? These were the youth. These were the brothers. These were the brothers of the sisters. They were the son of mothers and they were the father of the children. And they died as a cattle. In numbers, in multitude. Who were the pillars of the society. And because of the madness of the politician, they have to lay their life. None of the fault. And what the phrase have, what is the first sentence? Passing bells for those. Passing bells. When a person dies, there is a mourning. A proper tribute is given to a person. But here what we find? Passing bells. Why passing bells? Because numbers of people have been died and they have to be given the tribute because these cattle are to be removed and the other cattle is in the offing. આટલા લોકો તો છે જ આ કેટલમાં. અને why this speed? Why this rapidity? Why this passing bells? This passing bell because there's a huge number who have died in this war. And we cannot stand only to give the proper mourning to these people because where is the time? It is not that 1 or 2 person have died. But here the person have, the soldiers have died in huge numbers. Now only the monstrous anger of the guns. Now here monstrous is personified. Monstrous anger of the guns. Now even the gun which is throwing so much fire, it has become monster. We find, in the battles, in the wars, we find that, there is a madness. Why this madness? Because, the leaders of the countries are having the vested interest. And because of this vested interest, they make the soldiers the pawns. And here the politician tells that here they are the martyrs, Deshbhakt. But when we call him Deshbhakt, that there should be the big cause for laying the life. Life is not cheap. Life is not peanuts. But life has its values. And it is not about one life, but with one life, numbers of lives have been attached to it as such. And here we find that, that monstrous anger of the gun. It is not the people who are angry. It is not the family members who are angry. But here we find that, that even the guns they have become monstrous, and they are yelling, they are shouting that, that why this type of anarchy? Why this type of tragedy? And this is the thing that, that what Wilfred Owen has talked about. That, first of all, when he went for the war, he himself was very ecstatic. He was very energetic to go about war. Because, the praise of war, he has heard the numbers of story of the wars. And he thought that, that war is something interesting thing. That you have to fight for the countries. And it is something, the people praise about, the people eulogize about. But, when he saw the condition of the people in the war, they were not having food to eat, the water to drink, and even they do not get the basic amenities. And even at the time of war, they did not get the first aid, and they were screeching and yelling like anything. When Wilfred Owen saw this type of condition, his heart sank. And this is one of the poems he wrote to his mother, that that what is the true condition in the battlefield, and what are the poets talking about, what are the national leaders talking about. There is a world of difference between the martyrdom what we are talking about and the real life what these soldiers are going about. There is a world of difference between it. And when we talk about the cause, then many a times, this cause can be sorted out. It can be negotiated. But why this cause is not negotiated? For the simple reason that, that the top haunches or the top brass do not want to solve this problem, and they are having their own vested interest. And because of their vested interest, they make these people the pawn. And this is what the underlying message of Wilfred Owen. Now, only the stuttering rifle rapid rattle. Now, as far as the rifle is concerned, it is stuttering. Okay, here again the rifles are personified. The rifles are stuttering, they are shouting. Okay, and what happens that, that the rifles are just making a sound, and they are giving the tribute to the people who have died in the battlefield, and rapidly. Here, we find speed, rapid, passing bells. Why? Because, here we find, because, in world wars we did not have the time. We did not give the proper burial to the soldiers. When the people are dying in huge number, where is the time for proper mourning? Where is the time to give the proper tribute? And this is the reason that, that why we are finding that, again and again, the speed, the passing bells, and of course the rapid rifles, why we are talking about. Because here, as fast as the burials have to be given, because the other soldiers, other dead soldiers are towing the line for their burials. This is the message, this is the first-hand experience of Wilfred Owen. Now, only the stuttering rifles rapid rattle can patter out their hasty horizons. Okay, patter out. Patter out means they speak rapidly. Okay, and why rapidly? As I told before, that that the state does not have the time to give the proper burial, and this is the reason that that the rapid burial had to be given. And it can patter out. Again, patter out is speaking fast. It is rapidly speaking. The rifles are shouting, the rifles are yelling, they are shrieking, and they are speaking. And why they are speaking fast? Because of the hasty horizons. Horizon is the prayer. And as far as this prayer is concerned, this prayer is given to the person who have died in the battlefield. It is the funeral prayers. And the funeral prayers has to be given as fast as possible by the guns, by the rifles, and the very important thing is that the in World War I and World War II the people had died in multitudes, and this is the reason that that the hasty things what we are seeing in the poem, and that is a very tragic thing as such. In World War II Hitler had come, and in World War I also a huge tragedy had taken place as such. And very important thing is that that we did not took the lesson from World War I, and the World War II had transpired, and World War II had taken a very huge monstrous killing, annihilation, genocide of the people. Now what happened, that no mockeries now, and now for them no prayer nor bells, no mockeries now for them, no mockeries as far as this soldiers are concerned. How can we mock? This is specifically the poet consider it is a mockery. What type of burial what has been given. Absolutely this burial is it is a mockery, and it should not be for them, because they have laid the life for the nation. And when you lay the life for the nation, then you have to give the tribute, you have to give the value to that life. But here we are finding that the life of the soldier has been treated like the life of the cattle, and even worse than the cattle. And here the poet tells that no mockery for them. As far as this people are concerned, this people, the soldier, deserves the proper tribute. And a very important thing is that that this tribute we are not able to give to them. And no prayer nor bells. We do not have the time. Why I am safe today? Because there is some person on the border who is guarding my country, who is guarding my state. And the person who is laying the life for my country, the person who is laying the life for myself, the person who is laying the life for the state, even we do not have the time to give the proper burial. Now this is the reason why Wilfred Owen is grieved. It is absolutely tragedy for him. And with him there were other poets who have written the de-glorification of the wars. Now at that time also there were many poets who had written the glorification of the wars. And this glorification the poet criticized excessively, tremendously criticized. And he says that that it is hogwash. As far as the glorification of war is concerned, it is absolutely hogwash. And the youth are the treasure of the nation, and this treasure of the nation should be preserved. And the bloodshed for no reason should transpire. It should not happen. Even in India, we have seen the Kargil war, we have seen 3 wars with Pakistan, we have seen the war with China. Now, what was the yield of it? And even today, we are fighting for Kashmir. And there are many soldiers who have been killed for, they have laid their life for. Now, this thing can be specifically the other country can become an intermediary. Or the two nations can talk about the problems what they are having about. But a very important thing is that that we have to pay, the soldiers have to pay the heavy prices for the foolishness of these leaders. And this is why the poet has been offended by. He is absolutely offended by this madness. There is no method in madness. And this madness is not going to take us anywhere. Now, next is nor any voice of mourning save the choir. Now very important thing that that as far as the nor any voice of mourning save the choir. Now as far as the mournings are concerned, mourning, the people who are having the sadness, the people who are sullen, okay, save the choir, the people who are singing at the songs sung for these soldiers. Even there is no refuge for that also. The shrill, demented chords of wailing shells. Now the shrills, the yells, the shoutings, and of course, the demented chord. Demented chord means, the raving mad sad songs of the choir. As far as these songs are concerned, these songs we can hear everywhere. And a very important thing is that that they are also very momentary. The burial, very momentary burial has been given, and the karma goes on, the herd goes on. And here what we find that that the shrill demented chords of wailing shells, as far as the shells are concerned, we are finding that the shouting of the gun, the yelling of the rifles, all sort of things are concerned, and the proper burial what they were expecting, these soldiers are bereft of. And here what is why this poet, the Wilfred Owen, is pained with. Now, and bugles calling for them from sad shires. Now shire is a countryside, okay, village, deep inner village, and in that, from that inner village, what we hear the sound of bugles. Now bugle is played at military funerals, okay. It is an instrument, and as far as this instrument is concerned, when a funeral is given to a soldier, these bugles are played, and these bugles which are played, they are also played very hastily. And why they are played hastily? Because very important thing is that that first of all, that as far as our soldiers are concerned, they do not get the proper burial, and there is anarchy. The things are at 6 and 7 at the time of war. It is absolutely, 6 and 7 we find it. And what happened? What candles may be held to speed them all, okay. And very important thing is that that here also we find that the word speed, the adjective speed is used, and here also we find that that as far as the candles are lit and the funerals, the bodies are taken and they are given the burial, but that burial are also in a form, in a way that a proper burial is not given to them. Not in the hands of boys, but in the eyes. As far as the candles, the burning of the candles are concerned, we find that that candles are burning, but they are more burning in the eyes of the boys. And when we talk about the boys, we talk about the children, we talk about the younger brothers of the soldiers, and we find that the deep grief in the eyes of the people. And what we find, the flame in the candle, the more flame we find in the eyes of these people, of these boys, these children. And this flames in the eyes are more grave than comparison what we find in candle. Now, not in the hands of the boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmer of goodbyes. And what we find that that these eyes are they are giving the goodbyes, they are giving the adieus. But a very important thing is that that these boys are more pained than lighting of the wick of the candle. And here we find that that goodbye is given to the soldiers. But a very $1 million question is that that are we learning from the wars? A $1 million question. That that when we find that such a destruction, genocide, annihilation, and the people are killed in multitude. Do we take a lesson from it? That is a very, very important, very pertinent question. And since ages, these things are going on. And no one is talking about it. And here is a poet who is pained and grieved to write this poem. And here what he talks about, that we are giving the adieu to these people. But are we taking the message that this type of killing has to be stopped? That is a very important thing, that this type of killing has to be stopped. And we, as far as this world is concerned, one poet says that there is less time to love. Where is the time for the war? Our life is not so low or not so imprecious that we can waste our life for the trifling matters. And war is trifling. Life is important, war is trifling. And next what happened, that the pallor of girls, bro. Pallor means the tragedy of girls. And when we talk about the boys, boys means the son or the younger brother. When we talk about the girls, girls means the younger sister or the daughters of the soldiers who have been killed in the war. The pallor, the tragedy of the girls, bro, what we see. It is very difficult to endure. It is very difficult to tolerate. The pallor of the girls, bro, shall be their pall. What is the meaning of pall? The pall means that that a white sheet which is put on the coffin of the dead soldier, that we call it as a pall. Now that pall will become the pallor of the girls, bro. Here pall and pallor, two things more or less synonymous has been used, but there is a world of difference in meaning as such. And that white sheet will become the grievance throughout the life for these girls. And this pain they have to go throughout the life. The wives, the mothers, the daughters, the sons. It is, when a soldier is killed, it is not a one person who has been killed, but the whole family has to suffer because of it. The state may be giving some money, he may be giving the award, but that is not enough of enough. Very important thing is that that when the life is laid for nonsensical things, then what happened, that these soldiers has to sacrifice for the idiocy or foolishness of the people who are sitting on the top. And as I told before that that when a soldier dies, it is not a person dies, but with it the whole family dies. And here the examples of boys and girls have been given in the same form as such. There flowers the tenderness of patient mind. And what we find that that they as far as their patience is concerned, they don't have an alternate but to have the patient mind. When we see this type of agonies, what will happen, that a person becomes impatient. But here we find that we find the tenderness of the patient mind. Now the purpose of writing a poem, that poet himself had become impatient. And he wanted to give the message to the world, stop this nuisance. Now here we call about the patient mind of the people. Here the poet himself had become impatient. And why he has become the impatient? Because he has not heard, he has not read, but he himself was the part of the war. He had the first-hand experience, and this is the reason that that his impatience has become a sonnet against the war, deglorification of the war. And that is the very important thing, that that this message has to be understood by the people. when the top honchos or the top brass of the society does not understand this thing, then that the people has to give this message to this top people. That is very important thing. That in India we are talking about corruption. Now the top leader specifically do not come to the conclusion, and what we have seen that the people have gathered on the road and there is a mass movement. In the same way, there should be the mass movement, and this mass movement should be against the wars. And when such type of poems are written, the novels are written for de-glorification of war, then the deep message goes into the society. There is no doubt about it. The deep message goes into the society. And here we find that that the patient, that as far as this patient minds are concerned, these patient minds with tenderness, they are watching this thing. And each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds. And here as the dusk, what we find that that dawn to dusk. Dawn means that that sunrise, and dusk means that coming down of the sun. And when we talk about the coming down of the sun, here we find that that it's the end of the soldier's life. And when we talk about the blind means that that here a tradition of drawing the blinds in a room where a dead person is kept, a dead person is lying, and that poems are sang. And here in a blind, in a way, a dead person is kept there, a dead person is there, and the hymns or the songs are sung in the praise of a person. And here there is a dusk, or there is a downfall of a soldier like a dusk. So here, as far as this poem is concerned, this poem is about the doomed youth. The youth, none of his fault, and he has to lay his life for the country, not for a big cause. Okay. Now I completed the poem. I'll be going for the analysis of the poem, and summary I've taken, but critical analysis I'll be talking about. And very important thing is that that this poem has not only to be read, but it has to be shared, it has to be talked about, and it has to be seen that that this type of madness does not take place in the society. Now, Anthem of a Doomed Youth, as the title suggests, is a poem about the waste of many young men in the First World War. First World War, many people had been died, and here the poet himself was the person who had laid his life. And this is the reason that that why I should care. Why I should care means that that it is not only that that he has become a martyr and I should pay tribute to him, but there should be a sense of care that this thing should not happen, and there should be the mass movement among the people. Now, national security, freedom, democracy, these days every fighting man and woman has his or her own reason for joining military. Now we talk about freedom, we talk about democracy, we talk about national security, fine. Everything has the cause. But for a meaningless thing, when there is a fighting, then what happened? That there is a angst among the people, that there is a depression among the people. That why this type of, see, when in Kargil war, when I heard that that 1,000 people have died, I find that that there was no reason, because our Prime Minister had gone to Pakistan to talk about the things. Now the matter could have solved by negotiation, but why meaningless killing had taken place instead of war, instead of wasting so much money? Why not to build hospitals? Why not to have the proper education? Why not to have the schools? Why not to have the development? When we talk about the security, when we talk about the defense, India has to pay 1 million crores of rupees every year for defense. And when I talk about defense, it means that as far as this money is concerned, this money has gone to the dogs. Now I absolutely consider that that why this money should not be utilized for purpose. That is $1 million question. Now the countries has to think about it, and the United Nations should come in between. And the meaningless killing and the meaningless money, why the inflation comes in the country? Inflation comes in the country because of wars, because of nonsensical defense budgets. And this is the reason that I should care about. This is a critical analysis of this poem. That why should I should care about the people. I should care about the economy. I should care about my country. And these are the very fundamental question what a person should think about. Then, but it's hard for us folks at home to get a handle on how these ideals translates to the huge sacrifice they make or the horrors they endure once they find themselves in the spot like Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, very important thing is that that Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, India, Pakistan, where multitude of people are dying as such. And when we join military, for internal defense, fine. In a real sense, when the things are for development, fine. But when it comes to meaningless killings, this meaningless killings, the military people are thinking about that. Does it make sense to kill the neighbor's people, or the neighbor people are thinking that it makes sense to kill the people of other countries as such. This is a very fundamental question which has to be addressed. Now, back in the States, we still have our daily lives in content with, and with all kinds of news stories competing for attention, it's easy for the terrible daily grind of battle to get lost in the shuffle. Research shows that our modern wars don't quite hold the nation's attention the way they used to. And very important thing is that that we are seeing in America, we are seeing that that there is a huge depression, mandi, slackness. And why in America we are having this slackness? Because America is a big country where the repercussion of economy we find throughout the world as such. Now, according to one survey in Time magazine, 1 trillion billion has been lost in US-Iraq war. 1 trillion billion rupees, dollars, sorry. And when we talk, it's a huge amount. And there was, of course, the wars had been fought for almost 4 to 5 years. And George Bush, he gave the order to march to Iraq. And very important thing is that, that a huge amount of money has spent on it. And we find that, that there is a global depression. And this global depression, one of the reasons for this global depression is wars. And it has to be stopped. This madness has to be stopped. Of course, back in Wilfred Owen days, war was much more all-consuming. World War I required all kind of sacrifice on the part of general public, and battles were often fought in villages and on farms where everyday folks were just trying to get by. Now, the military training was compulsory, and even Wilfred Owen did not wanted to join military. But by compulsion it was forced the youth to join an army. And in World War I, we have seen that that there is a huge amount of destruction, annihilation and genocide which has taken place. And of course, if World War III takes place, then the whole world is going to get submerged into the dead bodies. Why? Because nuclear weapons is not going to save any human beings. That is very important thing. So, this is the reason that that why World War III has not transpired. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we have not seen that that this type of World War III which has taken place as such. Now, that's what Owen seeks to highlight in Anthem for Doomed Youth, that no matter how much we memorialize tribute or honor the fallen, we can't ever really know what it was like for them in those horrible moments before death. When we are paying tribute, when we are giving honor, it is we have to see that that what type of life they have led. And this, when we think about it, when these leaders themselves go into the border for day one, they will understand the gravity of wars. This is very important part as such. Just to be a fence sitter, just reading, just watching on television, just reading in novel and poetry, that is not going to serve the purpose. But it is very important thing is that that the realization of terrorization of wars, which it has to be thought upon, and this monkey madness has to be stopped, because every life is valuable, and if the things are not given the proper attention, then of course the mass movement should take place as such. Then Anthem for Doomed Youth strives to make it impossible for us to ignore those realities and to realize that in the face of all that horror, our anthem might ring hollow, no matter how much we seek meaning in it, how much we glorify. But unless there is a thought of understanding between the people, between the states, between the country, then I think so that this glorification of war will not take us anywhere. And as far as this poem, the message is concerned, it in a sentence it tells that war is hell, and this war is hell a person has to realize. Wilfred Owen, the poet behind Anthem for Doomed Youth, was a young British officer in World War I. He entered the Great World War with full enthusiasm and patriotic fervor, ready to fight and die for his country. He heard a lot of brave stories, martyrdom of wars, and he was full of beans, full of energy, full of enthusiasm, that I want to do something for my country. But when you tell that when you have to do something for the country, then does it mean killing another person, another brethren? Who specifically, when you kill another person, are your motives going to be get solved? That is a very important thing. So here it was a person, the poet, full of enthusiasm and full of fervor and zeal. But when he entered the battlefield, the other side of the coin was different, and he was on the receiving end. The poet was on the receiving end. What I heard about, what I read about, what I thought the glorification of the war, but things are absolutely different. But over time, after grueling months in the trenches and through the encounter with Siegfried Sassoon, Owen came to realize that the realities of battle were far different from what he had been led to believe. Now there was another person who was also a soldier, and he had become a friend of Wilfred Owen, and his name was Siegfried Sassoon. Now they become friends, and when they become friends, they were talking about the meaningless of killing, and being in the trenches and killing meaninglessly and living a very, very tragic life, and sharing his thought with Siegfried Sassoon. He came to know that that as far as what he was thinking about, it was absolutely in contradiction what he was thinking about as such. So here what the poet was thinking and what really happened, there was a world of difference between it. As in, they were much worse. Fortunately for us, this revolution in his thinking was also matched by big improvement in his writing. And what happened? That he shared this thing with his mother, and he wrote, and whatever his thinking is concerned, it was not just confined to himself, it was not just confined to talking, it was not confined to sharing, but it was confined, it was in a big canvas. He put it in writing. And this writing, the other people read about and they thought about. And a big canvas, he took a big canvas and he made the things shared with other people. And this type of sharing is only going to dilute the meaningless wars. That is very important thing about it. Now, with some help from Sassoon, Owen was soon writing brilliant, biting poems, including Anthem for Doomed Youth, which was published posthumously in 1920. Posthumously, after he died, he wrote this poem was published. And a very important thing is that that a strong message was conveyed to the world. And stop glorification of the meaningless thing. This is the message what he has given. Because the politicians are always going to glorify the killings. They are going to tell these people they are martyrs, but two hoots for this martyrdom, because they are dying the meaningless life. And here the poet in his lining, in his poems, want to convey the message that love, affection, a true Christian is give respect, give love, share affinity with other person. That is true Christian. It is not the killing of another person. That makes sense. Then our country is the greatest ever. Our enemies are vile and worthless. Let's go smash them. Dying for your country is the holy and glorious. Hurrah. And I remember the Hitler sentence. You die for your country, fight for your country. The other people are your enemies. The Jews are your enemies. Now this type of hatred which has been created in the minds of soldiers, and lay your life for them, kill other people and get killed for your country. Now this is the venom which is imbued in the mind of the soldiers. And when you die, you will get heaven. Die for your country. This is the purpose you have come in the life. Now this type of things does not solve the purpose. Why to make a person die for the country? Why don't you talk and come to some conclusion? That is the important. Why not love? Why not affection? Why not relationship? Why not affinity? Why only killing? This is very important part. And this, the other aspect, the other side of the coin, the other messages of the coin are also to be given importance upon. And the poem holds that mirror-filled image up next to the more patriotic version of war we get at home, so the reader could see how different and how terrible was truce. There are two sides of the coin. One side is tribute, glorification, you will get the heaven. War is worship, die for your country. And the second is that trenches, terrible wars, destruction, anarchy, disorder, life is at 6s and 7, the whole economy is gone to the dogs. The other side of the coin is that. And the poet is concentrating on the other side of the coin, which is very, very significant part of our life. And lastly, Owen died just days before the end of the World War I, but in the 14 months leading up to the death, he produced a body of work that has come to be recognized as the best poetry ever written. And this was the poem ever written, which is specifically giving a strong message to the society. And these messages are important because we have to see that this madness has to be stopped somewhere. And I think so that with him there were many other war poets, and these war poets have given a strong message to the people, to the society, to the other countries, and this message we have to think about, and we have to stop this madness about. Thanking you very much.
Sandhan, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.